I'm Brandon Strange, joined by ESPN Houston's Charlie Pallilo of the Press Box. Charlie, welcome in. Last week, J.J. Watt cemented himself as probably the ultimate hero for the Houston Texans, playing Dorothy to Bill O'Brien's Wicked Witch. But there's a harsh reality that the Texans face right now, and it's that for all the good vibes that they feel and getting their first win of the season, they have a pretty rough schedule. It's uphill for them. There's some things that need to happen for this team to rebuild and put themselves back into a positive trajectory. One of those ways is perhaps trading J.J. Watt and getting whatever's left of his value and maybe getting some picks in return. Colin Cowherd floated this exact thing last week, and he actually had 4 names that he thinks the Texans should target as possible trade destinations for J.J. Seattle, Baltimore, New England, and 49ers. What say you, Charlie?
Well, look, J.J. Watt's trade value is not all that high. He's 31 years old. He's carrying a $15.5 million salary this season. Next season, check my math, he'll be 32 years old, and he carries a contract for $17.5 million. And the truth is, J.J. Watt is not the player that was J.J. Watt, the Hall of Famer in making. The Texans have played 5 games. Sacks aren't the be-all, end-all, but they're part of the tale. JJ had 2 sacks in the blowout loss to the Ravens. He has 0 in the other 4 games. We just do not see him explosively off the ball, destroying handoffs almost before the quarterback gives the ball to the running back, the way that we used to see him. Now, I think he'd be a very valuable contributor to contending teams, as still an every down player, but this is not 26 or 27-year-old J.J. Watt at this point. Factor that along with a contract and the idea that, whoa, trade J.J. Watt, get a couple first-round draft picks. They'd be very fortunate to get even 1 second-round draft pick for J.J. Watt. And some of those high-end teams with higher-end payrolls, you can always shake loose a few shekels to come up with room under the cap to absorb Watt's salary. But you're not going to pay a ransom in compensation for the privilege of paying J.J. Watt nearly $1 million per game. The Texans are in a spot where they're not going to be good this season. Could they climb back into the playoff picture in the AFC with an additional team per conference this season? It's plausible, but that they're sitting 3-7 a month from now is more likely than that happening. So they should not deem J.J. Watt untradeable, but if the best you can do for a guy is a pick that projects as a low second rounder or maybe even a third rounder, then organizationally you weigh, is that worth it? Even though that's a possible asset going forward, it's no slam dunk. You're going to hit on the pick. And in the process, you're giving up the greatest player in franchise history. So trading J.J. Watt, I mean, it's not remotely close to any sort of panacea to get the Texans operationally back on the right track going forward.
What do you think about Cowherd's teams that he listed there? Seattle, Baltimore, New England, and the 49ers. Like, who would you target out of those? Who do you think is the more likely team that would give you value for JJ?
Well, in the case of the 49ers, underneath all their injuries, Nick Bosa, quite prominently, their best pass rusher, gone for the season. But I don't even know if the 49ers at this stage are a legit threat to defend their NFC championship. Seattle is undefeated and could certainly use a hell-raising pass rusher. I'm sure Bill Belichick would figure out a way to deploy J.J. Watt well for another team, a Patriots team that does not have a signature pass rusher. So you'd put him essentially on the auction block, and you would try to deal him to the team that offers you pick in the round, the team that you expect or hope to be the worst of those teams, right? If you trade J.J. Watt to Baltimore for a second-round pick, well, you're probably getting one of the 5 lowest picks in round 2. Whereas if a New England or a San Francisco chose to take the shot, and Bill Belichick, as great as he is, he gave up a second rounder last season for wide receiver Mohamed Sanu from the Falcons, which turned out to be a colossal waste. Sanu didn't even make the Patriots this season. If you are the Texans, if you are open to trading J.J. Watt, you're trying to trade him, it's not personal, J.J., to what you hope turns out to be the worst team possible this season to maximize the value of the pick or picks you're getting in return.
There is so much positive mojo surrounding him, and fan sentiment is really at a high right now. But I think there's that reality, which is a second-round draft pick is better than nothing at this point, which is what you're looking at. The fan base, and you tell me whether you think the fan base, they've already seen Andre Johnson, who previously was the greatest Texan. They saw him walk. Do you think fan sentiment would be a positive one in seeing, A, JJ go chase a ring someplace else. And then two is knowing that this could be his final contribution to the Texans, is giving some cap relief and maybe a draft pick.
Yeah, look, fans who are detached from reality, you don't need to be concerned with them. So there would be some they traded JJ Watt. They traded JJ Watt. Well, it wouldn't exactly be breaking up a dynasty, and it wouldn't be trading DeAndre Hopkins in his prime for a marginal return, for that matter. So any bleeding from sheep who are thinking, how could you do that? How could you do that? They'd get over it through time. Joe Montana was traded. Emmitt Smith didn't end as a Dallas Cowboy. If J.J. Watt goes somewhere else and wins a ring somewhere else, great for him. Also keep in mind that after next season, J.J. Watt could just walk. So he's an asset of diminishing value now. You wouldn't be selling high, but you'd be selling at well above zero if there's a deal you deem reasonable. Not many people watch Texans games to just watch J.J. Watt. Now, maybe 5 years ago, you could argue, yeah, fair number, do that. Not now. So if it's a move that better positions the Texans for 2021, 2022, those who'd be up in arms about trading J.J. Watt would just have to deal.
If you trade J.J. Watt, how does a guy like Deshaun Watson react to that?
Yeah, look, he seems to have gotten over the trade of DeAndre Hopkins, which had a much more direct impact on Deshaun Watson. And in the end, you can't be worried about what Deshaun Watson thinks. He's under control now for this season, plus another 5. And it would just be very short-sighted to stomp your feet and say, what kind of organization is this? How dare you trade J.J. Watt? If it's judged to be better for the organization going forward when the present is terrible, eminently defensible decision. The problem is, who's the grown-up who can make that decision within the Texans organization? Cal McNair's a work in progress. Jack freaking Easterby. So who is in charge? Who is in charge to make that call? Because, look, all franchises, especially those not exactly riding waves of goodwill right now, of course there is a PR component. But the next time the Texans are riding a wave of good PR and goodwill is the next time they have a good team, and the first time that they ever have a team that you're thinking, you know what, they have a bona fide chance to contend to win the AFC. They're not remotely close to that right now. So it's not as if J.J. Watt would be a Christian sacrificed to the Lions, Detroit or otherwise. If you can get a decent return for a guy whose last season as a Texan, regardless, would probably be next season unless they're a Super Bowl contender, at 33, he's going to walk to the Packers or to some ready-made contender, and rightfully so. The idea that J.J. Watt right now should just be untradeable as Mr. Texan, stop.